So, Calgary's South Asian community wants an apology from Premier Jason Kenney after he went on a radio station to deliver what he called a wake up call to the community, saying large family gatherings are contributing to the spread of COVID-19. What do we think about that framing? Was he out of line?
I don't know that a
Um,
lot of Canadians in different provinces have a lot of patience right now hearing leaders from any province blame citizens when so many leaders across this country have failed in COVID-19 response, especially with respect to reopening and opening too quickly.
mhm.
Here in Ontario, for example, it's been confusing, it's been badly communicated, it's been quite complicated. We have talked about it. And in Alberta, I remember reading news stories in July at CTV News after reopening in June when Alberta reopened about a spike in cases, rapid surges. So, would any of these new cases in this second wave be happening to the severity that it happened in Alberta and across the country if reopening was
Hmm.
dealt with more sensitively, more reasonably? I'd be more interested in hearing all the government leaders, including Jason Kenney, talk about their shortcomings as opposed to pointing fingers at families who are just trying to get by.
Hmm. And it's a great point because, there's a counselor, his name is George Chahal, and he actually represents this Northeast community in Calgary that is being, targeted seemingly by Premier Kenney. And he tweeted a bunch of stuff in defense of his community. And essentially, he is out there defending them. And he wants people to remember these are people who often have few or little choices. So his tweets essentially are saying, listen, these are frontline workers and they may live in multi generational homes, but these are also people who must be working out in industries such as trucking, in warehouses, in food distribution, in your grocery stores, in the taxi services. They sometimes have no other way to get around but on public transit, for example. And so he really is saying, he says if the premier wants to single out anyone, he should focus on those knowingly putting our frontline workers and their families at risk by violating public health orders, not the people working the jobs we need to keep our city going during a global pandemic. And so the idea that South Asian families are just kind of getting together at a party or to get together for dinner is really such a lack of understanding. And that's not just happening in Alberta. We have the region of Peel here
Mhm.
in Ontario where numbers are going through the roof. And people are like, well, because families are getting together. And it's like, is it that simple? You take a look at the Sikh temples, the Gurdwaras, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. And people are saying, well, they're all still going to temple. It's like, well, hold on, let's dig deeper. I reached out to Pooja Honda, who we know is a great friend, and she's Indo-Canadian. And she said, Gurdwaras are an interesting place. They're not just places of worship. This is where people who are in need of food
Yeah.
also go to get a meal. And so, to say, well, everyone's just getting together is so simplistic. And if you like your grocery food, on the shelves and you need to get around and you like, the food distribution, you want to get your package in the mail, you also have to look at who's doing that work. They just don't have the same options
But this places
sometimes
of
as
worship
everybody
thing
else.
is an interesting point like it's interesting for me because my first thought was when I heard this, and we've heard this also in, as you pointed out, in Toronto as well, is where is this information coming from? Because if health leaders and frontline healthcare workers are saying, listen, we've noticed that people who are going to places of worship or people who have literally come from a family gathering or a wedding or something like that, and then there's been this huge spread, I think that's important to know. I would want to know if that was my
Yeah.
mother, grandmother, family member who was going to those things, because I mean, my family's not South Asian. My mother is Italian Catholic. And so when she was considering possibly going back to church, I was like, no,
Yeah.
you're not doing it. And I had information to provide that. So I'm curious about where this information is coming from, because what it sounds like is all the things you're saying is that actually it's a total misinformation being spread around. But until it, like, this is again, we come back to data. I want to know the facts.
Yeah.
And here are some facts about Calgary is that they have the highest number of COVID-19 cases per capita in the country. And we do know also that they were quite murky about masks for a long time. I think people were only required to wear them as in August, as far as I understand. They've kept casinos open. They've kept gyms open, movie theaters. So I think we have to ask a lot of questions. And we know that when Kenney or leaders say things like this and call out one community, we know that often the racist attacks that happen after that. So,
Well,
like, it's
he
really
didn't call
problematic.
out the mask protesters there.
Yeah. That's true. Hey, we got a comment from Sarah on Facebook. She says, I was born and raised in Alberta and I love it here, but this premier and his government make me embarrassed to be an Albertan. To anyone belonging to the South Asian community in Calgary, I'm so sorry that you have been scapegoated this way. Thanks for that comment, Sarah. And scapegoated, I think, is the word that I was looking for. I was thinking about, it feels like Kenny's sort of wagging the dog, like creating a diversion almost about this community, saying that they had the high COVID numbers because of their gathering in large groups. But what could be more problematic is that, as you said, Mel, the majority of these people in this community don't have the luxury, and I know it doesn't always feel like a luxury, but of the luxury of working from home because they are warehouse workers and janitorial staff and taxi drivers. And Alberta hasn't done enough to protect them. Masks, like you said, Cynthia, haven't been mandated for that long. I think it just happened last week. And I think about, like, when's the last time you guys in your neighborhoods went to a grocery store or went for a kilometer walk in your neighborhood and didn't see everyone wearing a mask? And the numbers in my community in this 1 kilometer radius are very, very low, and everyone wears a mask.